Close look at the other four teams, or the four teams, I should say, in the conference championships. The Texans have never been. Let's localize these. Plus, let's listen to the exit interviews, relive them. I was there. What CJ and DeMeco had to say. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room.
All right. It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans digital content. It is officially on to the offseason. Shout out to the greatness of Sleeper for sponsoring the video. I will have a couple of greater than, less thans on Sleeper on display probably tomorrow or the next day. Tomorrow, Nick Caserio is going to speak, and it'll be interesting to hear what Nick Caserio has to say. I'll be there. I actually think Nick Caserio did an okay job this year. When you look back at the draft, and I think the improvement of those guys on the offensive side of the ball will play a major role in the offense taking the next step, much like it did on defense. If you look at Bullock and you look at Lassiter, I think that was huge. So I think Caserio outside of that did okay. The offensive line, not awesome, not terrible. This loss was all about the quarterback, and you would love to move on from the quarterback, but you really can't, because this is an organization that has never been to the AFC Championship game, and the fact that that's a goal that can't be reached, it's actually pretty sad. It's actually really, really sad. And you look at the history of the Texans. If you want to put this in perspective, there's less than a handful of teams who haven't been to the conference championship since the Houston Texans became a franchise. One of them's the Cowboys, and they were coming off their 90s run. The other one is the Dolphins. They've been a joke. And the Browns are the laughingstock of the NFL year in, year out. And you're one of four teams. And every team in your division has been there, some multiple times, some with different coaches. And you sit there without getting there when you had your best opportunity. And all you needed, we already know, was better quarterback play. And I do wonder if CJ Stroud is going to be able to be the one to get him there. I don't even know if you get back in the position that you were in, given the fact that there's a lot of momentum around the league right now. Like, the teams that are down were the teams you thought you were chasing, and a lot of the teams that you thought you were in front of in line, now they're ahead of you. And I wonder about the mental state of CJ Stroud as well. Yesterday was kind of a not necessarily a blur, but yesterday on the stream, we kind of focused on what CJ had to say after the game. The exit interview really wasn't at the front of mind, so that's kind of what I want to focus on here. And then I also want to focus on what DeMeco Ryans had to say. But I said this when CJ Stroud got hurt, and he came back and he looked kind of recharged. I think the long NFL season kind of has worn CJ Stroud down in some way, shape, or form the last 2 years. And you could clearly see it in 2024. I mean, he was talking about not having fun. He always looked just depressed. I've talked to people close to the situation who say it was just like the snap of a finger, something happened. I don't know if it was getting roasted after the Caleb Williams thing. I don't know if it's just the fact that the schedule was so crazy and it was all over the place. I don't know what happened, but something happened. And this year, as he had 3 weeks away, I said, okay, he looks a little bit revived, and he almost looks stressed. And I'm talking to people, and multiple people hit me up after they watched that exit interview, and they say to me, man, it almost looks like he's relieved that the season's over. Like, it almost looks like he is relieved that the season is over. And I do wonder if there is a certain wear down factor. We talked about it was in the moment. This isn't revisionist history. Like, as soon as he came back, I said, sometimes when you go on vacation, when you have a break, you come back, you look recharged. He looked a little bit recharged until we got to the playoffs. And the other part of this that CJ Stroud's going to have to deal with is CJ Stroud is going to have to deal with being the joke of the internet and of the NFL. I'm not being harsh when I say that. He's the number one joke when it comes to the internet and the NFL. That's not me being sarcastic. That's where things are right now. And maybe, they talk about blocking out the noise, not too high, not too low. It's easy for us to say, but it's his reality right now. And he's really going to have to find a way to block out the noise. And I think it's just as important for the people around him, whoever's in his circle, to not tell him about the noise. Like, it's not, hey, they were saying this on social media about you. Like, if you're close to CJ Stroud right now, then I don't think you should be like telling him what people are saying. I think he's probably pretty clear of it. He's probably pretty aware. He's 24 years old, and Instagram's probably been a decent part of his life. Even when he's not there, sometimes he's there. It's probably been hard. It's something Deshaun Watson had to go through for different reasons after being the 100% the man. So that's something that he's going to have to deal with, and we'll hear his exit interview, and we'll look a little bit closer at it. We'll also hear DeMeco Ryans and talk about that, as well as the CJ Stroud excuses. Like, what I want to go excuse by excuse for what CJ Stroud's saying. And a lot of these he's planted, but I want to go. There's 4 excuses that have been mentioned. If you are giving CJ Stroud any excuses, sometimes excuses are reasons, and sometimes excuses are just excuses. Sometimes there's a reason that something happened, but there's been 4, and you know what? I'm going to add 5 right now. No, I'll leave it in. I'll leave it in on that. No, I'll put 5. But we'll go through the CJ Stroud excuses. We'll hear what he says. We'll also react to the Mike McDaniel news in him being brought in by the Chargers, which I think is a hell of a move by them. And that might be another team you probably have to worry about a little bit. Well, first, I kind of want to talk about this conference championship. And I think that this is a little bit troubling when it comes to the Texans' inability to get there. First of all, to not have gotten there in the entire franchise history for the Texans is actually really sad. Like, it's actually pretty embarrassing that's where they're at, given the fact that only 3 other teams haven't been there. And you take a close look at the teams that are in front of you, and I think this is even more discouraging than we initially thought. And we've already talked about the Patriots and Drake May skipping the line and kind of getting over that hump with all kinds of momentum and all kinds of opportunity to improve their roster even more. But if you look at the 4 teams as a whole, and we always try to localize it and bring it back to the Texans, there's a lot of things that you can say. You can say, well, the Texans and DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud, they've been here for 3 years. There hasn't been much going on. It's still kind of a process. Well, the opportunity they had, I don't think any of us are going to dismiss it. We talked about it before. But then you look at this, and this is going to be some salt on the wounds, but there needs to be salt in the wounds at this point. This isn't a move-on situation. You're still going to have to watch. You're going to watch Jared Stidham lead the Broncos in the AFC Championship game against a team that you dominated on defense, that with just pulse quarterback play, you're going to play. So this isn't the move-on time yet. What do we got? 34 days till the combine. Myself and Cody Stoots will be there. We've booked our trip. And we'll get there. But right now, this is what it is. There should be a practice tomorrow. Instead, I'm going to have to hear Nick Caserio talk. How would you feel? But 3 of 4 teams hired a coach the same year or after you did, as far as DeMeco Ryans. Sean Payton was in the same hiring cycle. They actually had to give up draft picks to get Sean Payton. The salary cap situation when they hired Sean Payton was ass, including being stuck with Russell Wilson. And there was no quarterback available. So they kind of had to ride it out and figure it out on top of giving up the draft equity for Sean Payton. Mike McDonald was hired before last season. He's already there. And we'll get to the quarterback position in a second. And then Mike Vrabel was hired this season. So you've had a guy that was hired 3 years ago when DeMeco Ryans was, 2 years ago, the year after DeMeco Ryans was, and this year. So as far as getting stuff going, these guys inherited bad situations, and they're all where the Texans have never been. And I'm not sitting here saying it's DeMeco Ryans' fault. I'm just breaking down the reality. So that's 3 of 4 teams that hired a coach the same time or after you did. Then we go to the quarterback situation. 3 of the 4 quarterbacks were added after CJ Stroud. You know how CJ Stroud, new system, all that. Sam Darnold's in Seattle. I know he's run like kind of versions of that system. Sam Darnold was added this year. He's already in the NFC Championship game with a coach who was hired 2 years ago. Bo Nix was drafted the year after CJ Stroud, and he was the 4th quarterback taken in his draft. He left it all on the field. CJ Stroud thought he played good in the second half, just like he thought he played good in Pittsburgh. Bo Nix left it all on the field, and Bo Nix was able to break his ankle, win a game, and then have to tap out. So Bo Nix is there. But he's not really, but you know what I mean. And then Drake May was drafted the year after CJ Stroud. This is his first year in the system. Like all this excuse about, first year in a system. This is Sam Darnold's first year with his OC. This is Bo Nix's first, or this is Drake May's first year with his new OC. And you might say, well, the OCs are better. Yeah, sure. But the quarterbacks were added. So you've had 3 or 4 coaches and you've had 3 or 4 quarterbacks. Then you look at the franchise's last appearances. It's not like they're breaking some sort of drought. The Seattle Seahawks have been in the AFC Championship game or NFC Championship game in 2013 and 2014. And that was with a different quarterback and a different coach. That was with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. So in about the last 12, 13 years, they've been twice. This is their 3rd with a different head coach and quarterback. The Rams were there in 2018 and 2021. 2 different quarterbacks. They went with Jared Goff and they went with Matthew Stafford. So they've been 3 times. Denver went in 2013 and 15 with Peyton Manning and Coobs. And Fox. So they've been with multiple coaches. And New England was there, obviously, with Belichick and Brady in the back end of 2018. So these teams have completely reset. They've completely reset in about a decade or less. Seattle a little bit over, and they're back. So like the Bill O'Brien football hell, they've all been through it, and they've all been back. Like just getting to the conference championship is not like anything crazy. 28 of 32 teams have done it since you've been in an organization. The 4 that we're looking at right now that have gotten on the fast track, despite being behind you and hiring coaches and quarterbacks, they've actually done it with other coaches and quarterbacks. It's a mediocre layout. And that kind of adds to why there's the frustration with CJ Stroud when you have this opportunity and you go out there and wet the bed. And a lot of people don't think there's accountability. And a lot of people think there's coddling. And a lot of people feel like they're handcuffed with this. And a lot of people think DeMeco Ryans did everything he could do, and you let down DeMeco Ryans. Speaking of which, the coaches. So the organizations have been with different coaches. 2 of the coaches in there have been with other teams. Sean Payton with the Saints. Remember the controversial pass interference call? It was actually in 2018 against the Rams when McVay went to the Super Bowl with Goff. And Mike Vrabel in 2019 with the Titans. So you have coaches who've been with multiple organizations. So that's just where the frustration is when it comes to the Texans not getting there. So let's hear from CJ Stroud. Let's hear him summarize the season. We'll react to some other stuff. Here's CJ Stroud reflecting on the year.
I mean, it doesn't just take from yesterday. I think, the whole year, I think there was things that I, could have done a lot better, things I got better in, so I don't just look at all the negative, but, that's, what stands out, and I just got to, take some steps in some ways, and I think I'll be able to do that because a lot of things that, I've noticed from this season was some uncharacteristic things that I really haven't done in my career. So I just, want to learn from that. And, I'm still growing this league, still a player that, has a lot to learn from, a lot to, look forward to in my career. So I'm excited to do that. But, yeah, I just, I'm going to take my best foot forward and, move on and learn from it.
I mean, when you say you're still growing in the league, I want to repeat that two of the quarterbacks in this situation right now were drafted the year after you. And Drake May and Bo Nix. Like two of these quarterbacks above there were drafted after you. And they're probably still growing. Like, I'm not sitting here saying CJ Stroud's a finished product, but it's not like you're looking up at the guys that we were talking about before the season. So he's 24. Who gives a fuck? What does that mean? It doesn't matter. CJ Stroud is 24. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, what does that mean? You had an opportunity in front of you. No one's out. You'll never have to do less. Like, as you grow and as you get better, what's going to happen is you're going to be asked to do more because it's never going to be laid out that much. But the two quarterbacks that are in your conference championship game, they have less experience in the NFL than you. What are you saying? You think age is a problem? It's a weird excuse. It's a weird excuse to even say. Gustavo on the chat, shout out to you, my friend. Appreciate you for coming through. We're getting through this.
Swarm
Says, after a couple of days of cooling off, came to the conclusion we just have to build an O-line with some proven free agents, draft a killer RB and tight end, and just give CJ a Jalen Hurts team. Now who we liking? Let's let Ingram walk. Yeah, you got to build the perfect team around him. You got to build the perfect team around him. There's no doubt about that. You got to build a better team around him. He has a good team though. Like, CJ Stroud has a really good supporting cast around him. I would say CJ Stroud has a better supporting cast than Drake May. I would say if you switch teams, if the quarterback switched teams on Sunday, I think we're talking about the Texans getting to the AFC Championship game. I would say if you had Bo Nix, you're talking about the Texans in the AFC Championship game. Any of these quarterbacks that are in the conference championship right now, if you gave them the Texans situation, the Texans are in the conference championship game. The streak's over with any of those guys. We're lying to ourselves at this point to not open our eyes and see what he's showing us. Now, you can still get to where you want to get. It just has to be perfect. It was perfect though on Sunday. Sure, they probably could have run the ball more. Go get a running back. Maybe you can find like the equivalent of Christian McCaffrey, which is a stretch, but you talk about Jalen Hurts, you talk about Brock Purdy, you talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, a Saquon Barkley can do a lot for a Jalen Hurts, And a Christian McCaffrey can do a lot for a Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. But I think the adjustment that needs to be made is CJ Stroud is not an elite quarterback. And that's just really what needs to be accepted. And it might be fair to him to accept that. Like, look at CJ Stroud the way that you do Trevor Lawrence, the way that you do Brock Purdy. And I might be being nice, quite frankly, given the last 2 games. But look at him that way. But those guys have never had Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions in the first half against the Chargers, and then he just completely flipped the switch and they won. They came back and won. I had someone quote to me, well, Peyton Manning threw 4 interceptions. He did it after he had like 700 yards in the wild card and divisional round, and then he went on the road to New England at the peak of their dynasty and threw 4 interceptions with Ty Law playing bump and run and then freezing their ass off. You're really going to compare that to what we watched? But I mean, maybe that's just kind of the tier that you're in. Maybe CJ Stroud can get to where Brock Purdy is. Maybe you can surround him with a team like a Jimmy Garoppolo. But the problem then becomes, well, what do you do when it's time to pay him? Like if you're not able to win, and we've seen some quarterbacks come up short. You haven't seen the equivalent of what we saw with CJ Stroud the last 2 weeks. So let's not compare that to like some basic ass growing pains. Like, it looks deeper than that. And this is not like I would love nothing more than to be able to move on from the CJ Stroud situation and be able to say, okay, well, this is going to get better. But I just don't know. Like, is it a mental thing? I asked CJ, is it mental, physical? The jittery was the question, the term that was used. I asked CJ Stroud myself if there's a mental thing. He went kind of in depth. I'll let y'all decide what you thought of.
How much of it do you think was mental versus physical?
What do you mean?
Like, did the word rattled was used? Did you feel comfortable out there?
Yeah, I feel like I'm comfortable. There's plays where, things happen, where, you don't necessarily, like, your body kind of just reacts, it's like instincts. But I feel like, those things happen, and I came back out in the second half, and I thought I'd play well. I thought I, moved the ball, thought we did better in that first drive, and then, just, didn't punch it in, which sucks. But I think, once I flushed it and, let it go, because that stuff does happen, you do, unintentionally or intentionally, things do affect you. But I think I responded in the best way I could have, and, I stand firm in that, and I don't ever try to move, too fast or too slow, and I try to be where my feet are. So, I thought I did a decent job of that. But, I look at my career, I've had that a million times, and it's going to get blown up because it was a divisional game, and rightfully so. Like, it's, one of the biggest games of my career, and I didn't have the best day. But I could look back at other games of my career where I did show up, and I know that I had more of those than I had yesterday. So, I'm going to look forward to the next opportunity I get.
Yeah, I don't know how we're comparing a playoff game to a divisional round to other games in the career. You're 0-3 in divisional games. And I didn't really hold it against him that he lost to Kansas City or really even Baltimore. But like the other games in the career, 2023 was a long time ago. That was a different offensive coordinator. That was a different vibe. Those days are over. It's done. It's finished. Like, that's almost like talking about the Kubiak days at this point, where every time there's like a coaching spot open, it's, hey, go get Gary Kubiak. Like, that's how distant the 2023 version of CJ Stroud is for me. And I think it's just time to adjust what's expected of CJ Stroud. I think it's good for fairness to him. I think it's good for expectations for the team. I think it's good that you look at a football team that way. Like, I'm not saying it's this bad, but Denver's going into this game on Sunday with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback, maybe Sam Ehlinger, depending on what they do. And they're not sitting there thinking, okay, this quarterback's going to take it home. They're looking at it that way. Like the 49ers, when they were making runs with Jimmy Garoppolo, they weren't looking at it as he's going to take us home. Even the Rams with Jared Goff. They weren't looking at that saying this guy's going to get it done. There's times when they can play really well. But I think that's how you need to look at it. Like we got very, very excited that we saw what we saw in 2023, but everything we've seen, like the body of work has just been okay. CJ Stroud hasn't played like one of the top 10, top 14, 15 quarterbacks in the league consistently for the last 2 years. I'm seeing people put out his stats and stuff, and it's like you watch every single Texans game. It wasn't awesome. Highest completion percentage, and it wasn't awesome. It wasn't great. 11 of the 12 interceptions were on the road against playoff teams. Like if CJ Stroud played better weeks 1 through 3, the 0-3 start doesn't happen. There were some other costly mistakes, but we haven't seen that. So I'm not saying this as a knock. I've kind of been going back and forth on just completely openly adjusting my expectations, but that's kind of how I do grades. If you read the Houston football grades, like it was very rare that the offensive line would get an F. There would be times where they would leave me no choice, but I didn't expect a lot from the Texans offensive line this year. So that's based on the expectations that they set and the reality of the situation. CJ Stroud has a lot of talent. On third down, he makes plays that few guys can make, but I mean, I still kind of judge CJ Stroud almost like, okay, well, how would I talk about pick a really, really good quarterback? Maybe that's just not the case. And maybe that's just not fair. The guy has come out himself and said, I love that it's not all on me. I think most quarterbacks do, but I think a lot of them don't mind if it's all on me. And I'm talking about the really, really, really good ones. So that's how you got to, that's just how, I just think we got to adjust it and move on. Like tomorrow, we're going to hear Nick Caserio talk. Nick Caserio is going to talk a lot of offseason. We're going to talk about what to do on offense. We're going to talk about the excitement of these second-year guys and what they can do. The defense is still going to be fucking awesome. Maybe we just got to adjust the quarterback. Like maybe this is familiar territory. Maybe this is like a better version of what you'd expect from the Texans with Brock Osweiler, Brian Hoyer, maybe Matt Schaub on some nights. Like maybe it's just a mix of sometimes you're going to get Brock Osweiler, sometimes you're going to get Matt Schaub. Because in 2023, it was basically, well, man, this guy might be as good as Deshaun Watson was. He's not. He's not. He doesn't have the makeup that Deshaun Watson had when he was on the field from 2017 to 20. He doesn't have the charisma, and he has a better squad around him than Deshaun Watson did. And the results are very, very similar. So maybe that's just what it is. Maybe it's just a ping pong match where sometimes it'll be Matt Schaub, sometimes it'll be Brock Osweiler, but hopefully we don't see 2025 CJ Stroud, which unfortunately is the worst version of quarterbacking that we've seen in an organization that has 20 plus years of mediocrity, of not reaching a certain weekend that most teams have gone to multiple times during that stretch. And that's just what it is. Let's hear what DeMeco thought about CJ Stroud this season.
Look, the quarterback position is going to get, the most eyes, most attention. We understand that. And in this league, that's what it is. And CJ understands that as well. I thought just throughout the season, I thought he did a really nice job of coming in, learning new offense, new scheme. Thought he picked it up well. We got better as the season went along. And, he made some plays to allow us to win a lot of football games as well. So I'm not going to let, the bad plays there in that game, really, for me, dictate to me who CJ is. I know who CJ is. I know what he's capable of doing. And so we just keep looking to get better. No one feels worse about the situation than CJ, right? He feels bad, for the team, or feel like he let the team down. And, I just told him, you keep your head up and you keep moving forward. Look, we all want it better. We can't go back in that game right now and run it back and play it again. Like, we just learn from it. Like, what do you learn from it? That's my main message to him, is what do you learn from that, and how do you make that a priority and getting it fixed and improving and getting better.
Yeah, learn from it. What do you learn? How does it get learned? On the chat, Texas Vet says, shut up. That's kind of mean. That would be a hell of a show. He says Watson sucked when he played for the Texans. That's just kind of silly, Texas Vet. And I appreciate you for using Braille to find the the stream, but like really, I'm gonna put you in timeout because I you obviously can't see. Let's be serious. Deshaun Watson's the best quarterback this team's had. He was good. Like we've got to like accept that he sucked. Come on, brother. You don't get 3 first-round picks plus for someone who sucks and had going on what he had going on off the field. Let's be serious. And it wasn't just one team. You had 4 teams. That's 1/8 of the league that were willing to make that move. Like, let's just be serious. Let's not rewrite history. I try to make this a Deshaun Watson thing, but he sucked. You go away. MH We Eat Nation. Should we get TJ Yates back as QB coach? I mean, what would that do? I don't know. I do think the new QB coach thing is something that probably needs to be discussed and needs to be looked at. If everything else is improved, you do need to look at the QB coach. For sure. Yeah, I think most of y'all can at least like step back regardless of the fact that he wanted nothing to do with the organization, which quite frankly, I understand. And he changed after he signed the contract and he had all the off-field stuff, whatever did or didn't happen. I think most people who watched Deshaun Watson play football from 17 to 20 for the Texans can acknowledge he was good. If you can't do that, then you're just hating. That's insane. CJ Stroud on the offense improving. I thought this was interesting, and this might set up one of our 4 CJ Stroud excuses, or one of our 5 CJ Stroud excuses, which we'll break down at the end of this. But here's CJ Stroud talking about the offense improving.
I think just like the small things, like the communication things, getting out the huddle, just when the game is hard, making it more simple, and I just think doing the ordinary things time and time over and over again, because, I mean, that's what, these games come down to. I mean, being in the playoffs, in 6 games, and winning the 3 of the 6 is like, those 3 games we did the ordinary better time in, time out, because things are going to happen. Like, turnovers are going to happen. They're going to make plays. We're going to make plays, but it's all about getting back to the ordinary, getting back to what we're great at. And I think that's something that we could take a step in, is just, making sure we're doing the ordinary things over and over and over again and not being bored by that.
I don't really know what that means. He lost me there. I don't know. I don't have like a breakdown. I don't have any like snarky ass comment. I don't know what he means by that. Didn't really get it at all. Let's hear more from CJ on what he liked this season.
I think just the turnovers, like I haven't really been prone to turnovers in my career, especially like, the timely turnovers, where, I've, like I told y'all before, I'm really, I've been on some great teams, my whole career, where a lot of them were, offensive driven, and like, playing for Coach Day, where, we're taking shots and all these, and then, like being on this team, where, we're more full everywhere, where it's offense, defense, and special teams, but defense is is making a bunch of plays. So this year was a step for me where like I didn't have to be Superman all the time, and I'm still growing in that. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate my teammates for taking a lot of pressure off of my plate, but also they do know that I can make those plays. So I'm appreciative of them having that perspective, and I feel like I've grown in that way of like taking what's there, in ways where I would have taken a shot there, or just take care of the ball some other ways. But I just seen some growth in my footwork, in the pocket, trusting my guys, staying in the pocket, not just running around, but staying strong and firm. So I think I made a step in that area as well. But always things to improve, and I'll do that.
Is that a clone? Like, does CJ have a twin brother? It's almost like he wasn't even here the last 2 weeks. Like, maybe he's just convinced himself that the last 2 weeks didn't happen, which is maybe not the worst idea for him. But that just sounded like someone who didn't watch what he watched and didn't go through what he went through. And quite frankly, the delusion was happening, and we're getting repetitive. We're not going to be talking about CJ Stroud the whole time. We're just still in this, and this is the exit interview. And he's had 2 pressers in the last 3 days, but that sounds like someone who wasn't here the last 2 weeks. And quite frankly, when it was happening, he was dismissive of it too. Like it's almost like denial and not really addressing it. And it's not like some sort of like behind the scenes where it's like intensifying. Like after the Pittsburgh game, he wasn't concerned, and then there, it's like it never happened. And the other thing that is just really interesting is like this notion that, you know, it's only 2 games and, you know, a big body of work. Really? I don't really think that that's something that you minimize. I thought the playoffs was where we kind of maximize. Like, why do we bring up TJ Yates? Seriously, why do we bring up TJ Yates? Why does TJ Yates come up? Someone just said that he needs to be the QB coach. And whenever we talk about the playoffs, we mention TJ Yates. Why is that? Why are we bringing up TJ Yates? Why do we bring up CJ Stroud's performance against Georgia? Losing effort, by the way, but a hell of a game. Why do we bring that up? Because that's what it matters the most. That's when the pressure kind of piles up. But that there kind of just sounded like someone who wasn't there. Here's DeMeco on the turn.
Each one was a little different. I think sometimes you just got to learn if the play is not there, right? Now CJ knows that. He's trying to make a play. Play is not there. Sometimes you just got to dirt it. Sometimes you got to take a sack, even though you don't want to do that as a quarterback. It's just that's where the growth level comes.
Okay. I agree. I will tell you this. I don't think DeMeco is any delusional on CJ at this point. I think DeMeco is very much wondering if this is the guy that he wants to be his quarterback 3 years from now. There's zero chance that a guy who coached the defense that he coached and coached a football team that he coached, like everything that they did was perfect this year. Like Nick Caserio should be telling me to go fuck myself right now based on the criticisms that I had this year. Nick Caley should be able to be telling Landry, hey, fuck you, man. Nick. How are you going to question my offense? We knew what we were doing. We were getting set up for this point. We were being patient, blah, blah, blah. That's what they should be doing. And they're not able to. And you know what? I respect the gray area enough to where I can watch the way things happen and not simplify it and act like Nick Caley, Nick Caserio, and DeMeco Ryans didn't do enough. I don't know what more they could have done. They were let down by their quarterback. Like when I'm sitting here questioning Nick Caley, yeah, there's no victory lap for him, but I don't think they lost that game because of Nick Caley. They damn sure didn't lose that game because of DeMeco Ryans and Nick Caserio. Like for all the stuff that we can talk about, we went into the draft saying, well, they gotta get some weapons on offense. They gotta address the offense. They added a starting left tackle, a hell of a reserve running back who you need to make, by the way, your number 2. He ended up fumbling. He ran out of gas. You were asking him to do a hell of a lot. So they got a starting left tackle. They got a running back that they trusted to start. They got a guy who I think is going to develop into a really good number 2 receiver in Higgins. They got Noel, who I think is going to end up being a good player once he gets his opportunity and once he works on some of the stuff that they want him to work on that he openly knows that he needs to work on. They had a good draft. This might be. We said they need the version of Bullock and Lassiter on the offensive side of the ball. I thought they did that. Nico Collins was hurt. That happens. Every teams have some sort of injuries. Dalton Schultz got hurt. That happens. That's not why they lost. You watch the game. Watch the game. That's not why they lost. Yeah, you'd love to have a fully healthy team. Sure, everybody would. But Nick Caley and Nick Caserio did a hell of a job this year. I thought they did an excellent job this year. They put together a football team that was good enough to be preparing for Denver tomorrow. Instead, it's going to be an end of the year address from old Nick. Nick. That's just what it is. But nah, I mean, there was a lot of questions about Nick Caserio. There's a lot of questions about Nick Caley, and it's the same result. But at the end of the day, they're not there because of those guys. Shout out to TDECU, the official credit union of the Houston Texans. Go to tdcu.org/Texans. Get that fresh new Texans debit card. Membership required, insured by NCUA. You get 15% off the Texans team shop when you do so. If you don't want the Texans, get the Buc-ee's. The Buc-ee's is nice. You get discounts on gas. They also got the Cougs. Shout out to TDCU for riding along with us during the season and the playoffs. Let's go to the chat. We got some interesting stuff here in the locker room.
Swarm.
Johnny Lambo says, I like Gerard Johnson, but this might be a time to consider a change. I'm not trying to be trite. My question for you would be, what do you like about him? Do you know him personally? I know him. I think he's a good guy, but that doesn't stop me from saying, what do you like about him? What is it that him and CJ went to a camp together? I'm just asking, what is it that you like? That would be my question. We're questioning what CJ says. CJ says he's a good coach. Okay. But what do you like about Gerard Johnson from a coach POV? I'm honestly asking. Because last year we thought Chris Strausser was terrible. I think the Bobby Slowick firing is what it is. It was fine. But what do you like? Nathan Palmer says, as I said before, they should bring back Sean Ryan, Deshaun's former QB coach here. Maybe CJ could learn something. Sure. I don't have a strong Sean Ryan opinion. Izzy, shout out to you. He says, honestly, if this team had a mid to above average defense, we are losing more games and not making the playoffs, and CJ doesn't see it out on this guy. Yeah, they did not have a lot of injuries on defense, for sure. Someone says they're live from Malaysia. Shout out to you, my friend. Little international action. Drum says y'all need to relax. I always like these. We had no business in the playoffs with that weak-ass offense. They had no business in the playoffs? That's a goofy comment. Jake Ramirez says, Deshaun didn't suck at all. Honestly, we'd be hosting New England this Sunday if he was still here. Heck, he'd consistently get into shootouts with top QBs. Yeah, you would be the one seed with Deshaun. There's no doubt about it. That was a top 5 quarterback at his best here. So we all know that. For sure. I would agree with that for sure. Let's hear CJ Stroud talking about one game not defining it.
It doesn't just come down to one game, and even though it sucks, and I'm taking full accountability on my part, and this season, and the ways we didn't execute on offense, and but when I look at everything, man, I people gonna say what they're gonna say, and I know who I am. I know what type of player I am. I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's just things in life are gonna happen. It's all about how I respond, and so I'm gonna respond with my chest out, my chin up, and take my best foot forward, and and have fun and have joy while doing it. I'm put a smile on my face. I woke up this morning, the sun was bright. Of course, it wasn't easy. There's beauty. I think there's beauty in ashes. And the Lord can do that, and there's beauty in long suffering, and in this suffering time that I'll go through for whatever it is. I'm gonna take full accountability and full ownership, and I think in that I'll learn from it, and then it'll be a lesson, not a loss. So.
it did come down to one game. It was a win or go home. So it did, but that's really where he's at. But he promises there's going to be redemption. Quite frankly, after this, I'm just kind of done with the CJ thing. As far as hearing him at the moment. So let him rest, figure stuff out, stay off the internet. But here's the money quote he had about redemption.
But I want to be here as long as I can. I love the city of Houston. I'm just, I'm crushed, and I don't want to be emotional, but just like just how hopeful we were, to go farther, and for it to be on my plate, for me not to, step up, it really hurts me, and I just, I wish it didn't go that way, but my intent was never that. My intent is always, to go out and ball and, play as best as I can, and it didn't happen. But, I know that I can do that. So I just hope, this city and this organization and my teammates, and I know my teammates will, but I hope, everybody gives me a shot to do it again.
You get a shot, and quite frankly, you should get a shot at this point. Like, there's no other way to do it. Like, there's no get rid of CJ Stroud. So he's going to get a shot. I do wonder if, like, eventually, we mentioned the other teams with the younger coaches or the newer coaches and quarterbacks. Like, do the Texans eventually get to the Rams route where, like, if CJ Stroud is Jared Goff, where they were able to even get to a Super Bowl, like, do you just think, okay, well, we need to roll the dice and bring in a veteran? Like, if you're hoping for that, you just hope that Zach Taylor falls apart in Cincinnati and then Joe Burrow wants out. Like, that's really like the path there. I've heard people throw out Dak Prescott and some other guys, like maybe Baker Mayfield. They end up kind of rebuilding in Tampa. I don't know. But, like, I do think DeMeco probably has to kind of take a close look at this, because the other thing is there's some players that when you pay a quarterback, you're going to have to sacrifice. And if you have a quarterback like CJ Stroud, who by his own, through his own dialogue and through his own words is saying, I don't want it to all be on me. I'm glad it's not all on me. Although I never think it really was at Ohio State. I think they had a good defense. I think they had a good offense. I saw that quote was kind of getting a little bit roasted. Maybe it's a little bit out of context, but if he's taking that large of a chunk of the pie when it comes to the salary cap, then you are asking him to do a lot more. So that's something they're going to have to figure out. Maybe the Rams route ends up being a thing, but who knows? That's something they're going to have to figure out. It's not a short-term thing. I don't think there's any short-term fix. KK Games on the chat says, what are the odds we buy Linderbaum and Vera Tucker? I think Linderbaum's going to get offered a lot by the Giants with Harbaugh. And I just don't know, man. It would have been nice if they would have just drafted him instead of Kenyon Green. I know that was one of the names that we were throwing out there, Kyle Hamilton and Linderbaum. That was that positional value stuff. But what are the odds? Very low, I would say. But that would be cool. It means that he's a hell of a player. He's a really good player. But it feels like that's a Giant thing, or it's a Raven franchise tag. So Johnny, I asked him what he likes about Gerard Johnson. I'm not picking on you. I'm just trying to see. I don't know him personally. I know you do. I'm not like that tight with him. I've always enjoyed talking to him whenever I do. I know he's worked with CJ in the past and they have chemistry. My issue is simply from a fan's perspective. I watch body language and see results. Yeah. Who cares if he has chemistry with CJ Stroud if it's not working? That would be my thing. Like, yeah, he was at a camp. And then he got fast-tracked up to the QB coach thing. The Texans did make some moves today, though. They signed some guys to reserve future deals. I'm going to look at these guys, and let's see if any of these guys we could see having any amount of impact on the roster next year. So first one actually had a really good camp. I think Blake Fisher had a little bit of something to do with that. Maybe a lot.
What happened to that boy?
Solomon Byrd. I like Solomon Byrd. I don't know if he can develop into a rotational guy on this team or not, but I like him. Eli Cox, no real strong opinion on Eli Cox. Who knows? Josh Kelly, no opinion. Luke Lachey needs to get stronger. There were some times where he had some stuff going on in camp. He needs to get stronger. There'll be opportunity for him. I think they definitely need to upgrade the tight end room, though. Merriweather, who knows? Maybe that's a guy that, City the worst 5 snaps that we've ever seen. I'm surprised they actually kept him around. That was the weirdest experiment of all time that they did that. So I don't know what the plan is with him. Tafuna, very solid. I think he can crack the rotation next year. Xavier Thomas, no opinion. And then Jared Wayne. I know a lot of people hate Jared Wayne. They still hold that Tank Dell against him. So maybe Jared Wayne and Tank Dell will be together at camp. There we go. A lot of people will cringe when that happens. But we'll see. The Mike McDaniel dream, let's pour one out for that. The Chargers are going to hire Mike McDaniel as the OC. I think that's a scary team, the Chargers. I'm amused by Justin Herbert coming up short. And I thought that when they played the Texans, he was getting the shit beat out of him and he left it all out there. They had 26, 25, 27, whatever offensive line combinations, and they were still able to be in the playoffs. I was shocked that they got as far as they did, but there's always, like, whenever someone's getting roughed up like that, like, sometimes you look at it and you're like, okay, well, how are they going to fix that offensive line? Like when Deshaun was getting roughed, I was like, how are they going to fix that offensive line? And they ended up making a very rich trade for Laramie Tunsil. And sometimes you see teams like draft guys and all that. They literally lost 2 of the best tackles in the league this year. Like, it's not they get those guys back next year. So, like, yeah, it was tough, but I mean, they lost those guys. Rashawn Slater never played. Like, Rashawn Slater, they lost him before the season started for the season. And then Ott got hurt, I think, what was it? The second month of the season? Was it week 5 or 6? So the Chargers, it's not like they have to invest a ton of equity to make their offensive line better. They're getting 2 of the best tackles in the league back. Do I think Herbert would have done better than CJ? Yes, absolutely. Yes, he did. When they played, he was better. He was pulling, like, superhuman efforts together and getting the shit beat out of him. I think if CJ Stroud had to deal with that, I think he would have broken with the manner in which that was going down. Yes, 26 offensive line combinations. We've seen CJ Stroud perform decently. Again, 2023, long time ago, with some depleted offensive lines. There was a couple here and there, but we're talking about Trent Brown missing a game, and you have to bump Titus Howard over. Herbert gets Ott and Slater back. They're going to be pretty good. Their offensive line is going to be okay. It's not that useful. Like, I would be more worried about the Texans offensive line than I am the Chargers. Texans are going to have to figure out what they want to do. I don't think you can rely on Trent Brown. Probably can't rely on 4 of these 5 guys. We don't know what's going to happen. I would say you bring back Titus Howard. Is he a guard? Is he a tackle? Who knows? You got to consolidate that. But the Chargers, their offensive line's fine. It sucked. It was horrible. Yeah, they lost 2 tackles. I don't know why. Like, it's funny. Like, the national narrative is like, well, Herbert doesn't get criticized like CJ Stroud or Lamar Jackson or Josh. It's always a straw man argument. Like, you got to look at what actually happened. It's the same reason that I can watch CJ Stroud play against the Chiefs and say he was better than his stats. And he was worse than his stats in New England. Like, let's be serious about this and open up our eyes. There's always there's always a little bit more to it if you actually watch it. But yeah, Justin Herbert's got to take the next step. Justin Herbert's got to figure it out. Justin Herbert definitely got completely exposed against the Texans 2 playoff games ago by DeMeco Ryans and his defense, which appears to be a pretty good defense. But this year, they were upset when Austin Deculus got hurt. Austin Deculus couldn't even crack this Texans rotation. They were like, Chargers fans were disappointed when Austin Deculus got hurt. That's how bad their tackle situation was. But they got Slater or not. They're going to be straight. And they got Mike McDaniel. They're going to be okay. Carbonated Cancer on Z chat.
Swarm.
I pray CJ gets to tier 2 QB next year, but without some serious coaching and O-line improvements, I think he further regresses. Man, further regresses is tough to imagine. Maybe you get more of the same. I think the mental side is really something to keep an eye on. You know, when you talk about what he's going to have to endure when it comes to what's being said about him. And I say that with all due respect, that it's not easy to deal with. It's not easy to deal with jackasses like me talking, although I'm not like making gifts and stuff, but you know, if he plays good, he plays good. He plays bad, he plays bad. But like, yeah, that's going to be tough. The league as a whole is going to be tougher. The entire conference is going to be tougher. I don't think that the teams, like there's really like any situations where teams aren't feeling a little bit better about themselves. Titans are feeling better about themselves. Robert Saleh in the past, although this year 49ers defense was depleted, he's played CJ Stroud relatively well. Jacksonville's feeling themselves. Although they don't have much draft equity. The Colts, they're not good, but they're kind of the same team. It's usually a tough matchup there. But yeah, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be as easy as it was right now. So see how it goes on that. Nathan says, I just realized Kingsbury is still employed. I think that ship sailed. I don't see that happening. But yes, he is. And they did talk about Kingsbury a little bit before they ended up hiring Bobby Slowick. We'll ask Nick Caserio tomorrow about Mixon. It'll be interesting to hear what he has to say about him. Nick Caley, CJ Stroud said he wants him back. DeMeco Ryans would not commit whether or not he was going to bring him back. And probably going to be a little bit of word salad for Nick Caserio, but who knows? I want to get out of here with the CJ Stroud excuses, like the potential CJ Stroud excuses. And I've probably dissected these a little bit in this video, but I just want to go through like the 4 biggest excuses are 5. Let's go 5. And just kind of touch on them before we get out. Nick Caserio, by the way, tomorrow at 10. He's always pretty early. Excuse 1 is uncharacteristic acts. I don't know how you say that when you see 2 performances the way that he performed. Like if CJ Stroud went out there and threw 6 touchdown passes and he did so in consecutive weeks, I think we'd be saying, damn, that we got really something cooking here. What he did was basically the equivalent of throwing 6 touchdown passes in consecutive weeks. And he did it in the most important situation that there is after not doing it. So is it really uncharacteristic or is it a sign of things to come? I dismiss this because it was so minimized after the Pittsburgh game and it continued to go. The other one is trying to do too much. I don't know if it was trying to do too much or not. I think it was just, I honestly think it had as much to do with not wanting to get hit. I think it had as much to do with not wanting to get hit and not knowing how to adjust on the fly and make decisions. You heard him kind of break that down. So I'm not buying the trying to do too much. I think there was a certain nature since he came back from the concussion that he just did not want to run. The next one is the new system. I think this one should absolutely just be an eye roll. What was his rookie season? He was in a new system. He performed at a high level. What is this for Sam Darnold? This is a new OC. You can say new system. This is a new system for Drake May. Justin Herbert's going to be running a new system next year. Daniel Jones this year, when he was playing at a high level, it was a new system before he got hurt. Liam Cohen with Trevor Lawrence, that was a new system. Like the new system excuse is always amusing. I can't believe he even brought it up. But there's a chance. How many head coaching openings are there right now? There's 9. They're going to be running new systems. So if that's an excuse, it happens around the NFL all the time. Like eventually you can find the right one, but it happens quite often. So I'm not buying the new system excuse. Because it got worse in year 2 with Bobby Slowick. It was historic in year 1. The next excuse is surroundings. I think his surroundings were perfect. I think he had championship surroundings. So I dismiss that. And 5 with injuries, I dismiss that because that's just part of the game. And if you watch those games, that wasn't why they lost. So I dismiss all of the possible excuses. He's just got to figure it out. He's just got to figure it out. Or they got to figure it out around him. Or maybe, as I said, we got to adjust expectations. That's all the CJ Stroud actual talk from him that we'll hear for a long, long time. Again, shout out to TDECU for riding along with us in the playoffs. Official credit union of the Texans, tdecu.org/Texans. Get that fresh new Texans debit card. Shout out to them for riding along with us. One more on the chat from Timothy.
Swarm.
Appreciate you, my friend. He says, did you hear the diss song for CJ Stroud? LOL, the joke of the internet is an understatement. He is the internet. I didn't hear it. I don't know that I want to hear it. But yeah, there's a lot going on the internet. I would stay off the internet if I were CJ Stroud. I would probably just cancel the Wi-Fi. You might need it for the TV, but don't watch any sports or anything. He needs to be a straight Netflix guy. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Nick Caserio speaks tomorrow. We'll react to that. Content continuing. We're about a month away from the combine. We'll be on the scene there. Cody will be at the Senior Bowl next week, I should say. And we'll figure this out. JD says on the chat, he says, the more I hear Landry speak, the less hope I have for the future. I wouldn't completely dismiss it. I just think you got to look at it like, okay, it's the Jalen Hurts, it's the Brock Purdy, it's the Jimmy Garoppolo, where you just have to put a good team around him. That's it. Like he didn't need to be Superman the other day, but that's the recipe for football now, and things are going to get a little bit more difficult. But hey, I wouldn't be lost by it. You have a really good coach, you have a really good defense, and I think the offensive weapons can get better. So I don't think it's hopeless. I do think it's sad that they're not preparing for a game tomorrow. I think that you probably could have won that game with a number of quarterbacks, but I would not be helpless, JD. That's not, it's just the reality of the quarterback situation. He's going to have to figure it out. Either he's built like that or he's not. If he's not, then he's not going to be here for 2 more years. What happened 4 days ago? How long ago was it? 3 days ago? It's been a blur. What happened there? DeMeco's not going to roll with that. DeMeco is the football king here, so it's fine. So they're still going to be a good team. It's not going to be terrible. They're just going to have to really build around this quarterback, and maybe it just has to be perfect for him. But no, don't be hopeless. We're all in this together, brother. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways.